Hello and welcome to Salesian Sports Broadcasting for the NFL. I'm Colin, joined here by Nick and Chris, and we're now a full week into the NFL free agency period, and so many more big moves have been made. And one of them is a move which has been, everyone's been talking about this possibly happening for the past year now, and it finally has happened. Deshaun Watson has found a new home. Just back on Saturday, the Cleveland Browns ended up getting Deshaun Watson for free first-round picks plus a bunch of other assets. Now, this is a move which got delayed for a very long time because of legal accusations that got brought up against Deshaun Watson. And the reason why the market started to pick back up is because just recently he got cleared in the legal process, but there's still much more civil lawsuits as well as possible NFL suspensions to be dealt out. Now, if Deshaun Watson is found innocent, then this would be a great move for the Cleveland Browns, but we still don't know the full extent to what will happen. If Deshaun Watson is guilty on any of these counts, by all means he should be suspended and appropriate punishment should be taken. But I'm sure the Cleveland Browns have done their research into this matter, and now they have Deshaun Watson. So hypothetically, if Deshaun Watson is cleared, he's innocent off all these charges, this is a great move for the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns have not had really a great franchise quarterback, really in the history of their franchise. You know, for so many years, just being in the basement of the NFL, you had just recent success with Baker Mayfield, which is another big topic we're about to get into. But, you know, they came to a point where the Baker Mayfield situation did not end up working in Cleveland, so they decided that they wanted to get Deshaun Watson. And just from the talent standpoint, I mean, Watson's a huge upgrade. I mean, Nick, what is your first initial reaction to Deshaun Watson to Cleveland?
I mean, I can understand why they made the trade, but you have to see the risks in it. I mean, just the fact that Watson could face punishment by the NFL, but you also have to recognize the fact that Watson hasn't played for a year. And usually when QBs or any usual NFL players take breaks from the game, it's going to be a slow start. And leading into what we're going to talk about next. But Baker Mayfield, I honestly think Baker Mayfield should probably stay on that team, because if Watson gets a suspension for a year or even more, you're going to need somebody to back him up. And Jacoby Brissett, somebody they signed, is definitely not going to be a very solid backup.
But yeah, you know, that's one thing I wasn't thinking about for sure. I mean, if Deshaun Watson is suspended for a year, I mean, would Baker Mayfield possibly play for them? I mean, I feel the relationship probably is strained by this point. But if there is one thing, though, that the Cleveland Browns signed Deshaun Watson to a contract of about 4 years and over $200 million. So what that tells you is they feel pretty confident Deshaun Watson is not going to get suspended or charged. But like I said, if he's guilty on any of these counts, by all means he should be. But he should be suspended. He should be punished if he's guilty. But it's something we have to wait and see. But, you know, now in that division, you take a look around it. I mean, Pittsburgh, they're probably still going to be the same team they were last year. I mean, you replaced Ben Roethlisberger and Mitch Trubisky. The Cincinnati Bengals, which we're going to get into later on, but, you know, just continuing to improve the team. And they were a team that made the Super Bowl last year. I mean, the Ravens had a tough season last year, but, you know, the Ravens are going to be right back in that picture. So, and this Browns team, it's a very good roster. It's a team where, you know, you just got Amari Cooper. Jarvis Landry's another guy who wanted to trade but might not want to come back with Deshaun Watson possibly in play. So, you know, they were a team that went to the AFC divisional round a couple years ago and really almost beat Kansas City. If you remember that game, they were going down the field, or they just needed to stop the Chiefs, but Tyreek Hill, Chad Henne ended up getting the job done. So, you know, this Browns team definitely can compete, and we saw Cincinnati go all the way. I mean, no one would have thought that in the AFC North. So the Browns, if Watson would probably be the best quarterback the Browns have ever had if he can play for them. So you put that in Cleveland, he could possibly be doing something the Browns have never done before, possibly going to a Super Bowl. But that's still yet to be seen. But yeah, I mean, huge trade, something that's been teased for a very long time. But getting more specifically into it, I mean, the Baker Mayfield situation, he was a guy that was the first overall pick there, really brought them back to prominence, you know, getting them the first playoff win in almost 20, 25 years. But it came to a point where after the Browns originally were going for Deshaun Watson, it said that Baker wanted to trade because he felt disrespected. And then Baker Mayfield wanted to trade, and the Browns said no before they ended up getting Watson. So looking at Baker Mayfield's options right now, one team he was talking about a lot was the Colts, but that ended up getting shored up once Matt Ryan left. But now one team that's possibly in play is the Seahawks. Nick, do you see any possible landing spot for Baker Mayfield now outside of Cleveland?
I mean, obviously, Baker Mayfield has had a very up and down career. Going into the league, you know, he proved himself in that game against the Jets, and people gave him, I think, really high expectations to succeed. And he didn't really succeed those expectations until last year, when he led the team to a winning record and their first playoff win in a long, long time. But going into this year, and this year was a bit of a disappointment. Yet again, going back to a low in his career. People really wanted him gone pretty much by mid-season. Throwing a lot of interceptions. He's almost in the same boat as, I don't know, somebody like Jacoby Brissett or somebody like that. You're looking for somebody who's a temporary replacement, just as Jacoby Brissett was for the Colts when Andrew Luck left. Baker Mayfield, I don't even know if he's going to get a starting spot, but he has the potential to. And you're looking towards spots like Seattle, now that Atlanta is open because of Matt Ryan leaving. And there's many other teams that I think would happily take Baker Mayfield.
Well, yeah, Baker's now going to be out there on the market, going to be very interesting to see. He requested a trade, and the Browns didn't want to at first, but now considering that they have Deshaun Watson, I'd imagine that they would entertain those Baker Mayfield trade offers. But yeah, another fan plays those teams like Atlanta, Seattle. Maybe they draft a quarterback, and then Baker Mayfield kind of mentors them. We'll see whatever approach they take. But yeah, Baker Mayfield could be a guy who can come in and win you a couple games. He's not completely awful at this point. So, the team gets him, he could definitely produce. But we'll see what happens there on all that front. But huge changes in Cleveland. I think that when the Browns made the divisional round a couple years ago, I don't think you could have imagined the team turning over and falling apart this quickly. It's been a drastic downfall. But moving aside from Cleveland, we got going into that Atlanta situation. Now, with this Deshaun Watson thing, because it's all tied into this whole entire Watson saga, back when Deshaun Watson was entertaining teams, he was looking at possibly Atlanta and New Orleans. Actually, Cleveland was not supposed to be where Watson was going to go. It seemed that it was narrowed down between Atlanta and New Orleans Saints. And he ended up, it seemed like Atlanta probably was a favorite. Deshaun Watson, he was from Atlanta. He probably grew up a Falcons fan, so it looked like that was going to happen. But he ended up going to Cleveland. And it came to a point where it seemed the Falcons were willing to move on Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan was willing to move off of the Falcons. Matt Ryan's been there since 2008, 2009 when he was drafted first overall. Almost winning the Super Bowl. Winning an NFL MVP. Just been great for the Falcons for all those years. And finally, he got traded. He got traded to the Indianapolis Colts for a third-round pick. And this is a very good move for the Colts considering how the Carson Wentz situation fell off. I don't think that Matt Ryan at this point in his career is the arm talent that Carson Wentz is, but I think that with Matt Ryan, you get a very dependable guy who does not get hurt unlike Wentz, and a guy who I feel is less mistake prone. I don't think he's going to make as much mistakes as Carson Wentz, but putting him there in that system, I feel he really just fit that Indianapolis Colts system. Nick, what do you got to say about Matt Ryan?
I'm expecting at least maybe a winning record for the Colts next season, possibly even a playoff berth. Just because I love Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is he's just a solid quarterback. I saw some stat that in the past 12 years, he's only missed one game. So you're looking at somebody who's really reliable. And in those 10, 12 years, he's averaged maybe 4,500 yards a year with almost 30 touchdowns a year with something like a 60-70% completion percentage. Bringing in Matt Ryan, a veteran, over Carson Wentz it's a huge improvement. With all the mistakes that Carson Wentz was making in that offense, Matt Ryan is going to be much better. And I've said this, I think I said it before, that really it doesn't even matter what quarterback you have in there. Just because of the greatness of Jonathan Taylor, you could really put anybody in there and you could get a couple wins.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and another thing is that they only had to give up, a third-round pick to get him. So, great value there to get a veteran quarterback who's going to have great weapons over there in Indiana. So, I think it's a good move for the Colts.
That's also crazy. The fact that it was only a third for Matt Ryan. I get his contract's big and he's getting up there in age, but yeah, for a quarterback of that caliber, for a third-round pick, that's a great move for the Colts. And considering the situation they put themselves in, when they got rid of Carson Wentz, I thought that they were going to be very short on quarterback options. Really the only guy who came out at first was possibly Jimmy Garoppolo for them. But getting Matt Ryan, very solid move for the Colts. So I think they responded to the whole entire fallout that happened at the end of last year very well. The AFC South in general is not a very strong division. The Tennessee, I don't know if they're going to be as good as they were before. Jacksonville is just a dumpster fire. And Houston, they're also a dumpster fire. So I think that Indianapolis should have a very good chance of winning that division. But moving on to the other team that Deshaun Watson ended up deciding not to go to, the New Orleans Saints. In response, they got Jameis Winston back. Nick, anything you think about Jameis Winston going back to the Saints?
Really, is there anything to say? Jameis Winston is just Jameis Winston. You're not looking at somebody who's going to give you a winning record. Jameis Winston is not the greatest of quarterbacks, but he's solid. He's solid.
I will say one thing, though. One thing I saw from Jameis for sure is he cut down the turnovers last season. He didn't play for a lot. He ended up having that ACL tear, but it seemed that he wasn't making as much mistakes as he made in Tampa Bay. So if he can continue to do that, I mean, maybe the Saints could possibly be around a 500 record. I mean, I don't think they're going to be a playoff team or be a serious contender, but you never know what could happen. For the final move of the quarterback carousel, we have Tyrod Taylor going to my New York Giants. And this is a move that shows you that the Giants are not fully sold on Daniel Jones. I mean, this gives someone that Daniel Jones has never really had in his career, an open quarterback competition. I mean, Tyrod Taylor is a guy who many forget, but whenever he gets put into a situation, he usually plays pretty solid. I mean, in Houston last year, solid quarterback play. He led Buffalo to the playoffs. That's something people forget about a lot back. They breaking that 20-year drought. But, it's possible that maybe he can compete with Daniel Jones. I mean, I think that they'd still give Daniel Jones the week one job, but if Daniel Jones starts to struggle, I don't think that Tyrod Taylor is that big of a drop-off. What do you think the Giants are telling you here, Nick, with get signing Tyrod Taylor?
As you said, I think they are willing to move on from Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has had 3 or 4 years in the league and really has done nothing. He's a really bad quarterback. And bringing in somebody like Tyrod Taylor, who has proven himself as a reliable quarterback, and I almost put him as, he's kind of like Ryan Fitzpatrick in the sense that he's been on so many teams. I'm looking at it right now. He's been on 4 or 5 different teams in the past 10 years. And on teams, especially like in Buffalo, he's been a solid quarterback who can go out and help you win. He throws maybe 10 touchdowns average a season with not a lot of interceptions and around 3,000 passing yards. I mean, He's somebody who can come into an organization and turn it around.
Yeah, I think this move, if anything, I still think they're going to start Daniel Jones, as you mentioned, but I think if anything, it shows that they don't think he's this insane quarterback that they say in these press conferences. Right, I think they're accepting the fact that Jones can get hurt and that he may not be that good. So they're bringing a solid quarterback who will probably back up Daniel Jones, if not, maybe even start for him. And I mean, I don't think I think they will roll with Daniel Jones inevitably, but they're showing that they are not 100% confident in him, like they say in these press conferences.
Yeah, Chris, you brought up the injuries. I mean, Daniel Jones has gotten hurt in every single one of the 3 seasons where he's been a starting quarterback for the Giants, and it's a problem for sure. I mean, Eli Manning was a guy who never got hurt for the Giants. So if you're not producing and you're getting hurt all the time, that's not a reliable quarterback at all, and a guy who you should have as your starting quarterback for the future. And I could very much see happening, possibly if Jones gets hurt early on in the year, Tyrod Taylor coming in. I mean, at least it's not Mike Glennon. That went very bad last season. But, in our Giants teams are starting to, start to scrap the team, trading Evan Ingram, or getting rid of Evan Ingram going to the Jaguars, and
right now we have breaking news. A minute ago, the Falcons agreed to terms with Marcus Mariota. 2-year contract with him. The full details are not out yet, but Marcus Mariota is going to the Falcons.
Wow, would you look at that? Breaking news here on the podcast. I remember we had that for the NBA a few weeks back, but yeah, Marcus Mariota going to the Falcons, 2-year contract. I do like this. Marcus Mariota is pretty underrated. He did pretty good in that system alongside Derek Carr. He only went in for a couple plays, but yeah, I like this move for the Falcons.
Yeah, I personally have a lot of faith in Marcus Mariota. Obviously, in a little bit of a difficult situation on the Titans team, and leading up to his replacement with Ryan Tannehill. But when he played as a backup behind Derek Carr, I mean, he was nothing short of spectacular. He was really good with Oakland. Not Oakland anymore, Vegas. But yeah, like all the other quarterbacks we've been talking about, Marcus Mariota is, again, a solid quarterback that you could be playing with.
Yeah, for so long in that free agent market, everyone was talking about Mitch Trubisky. But if you ask me, I think Marcus Mariota is a much more valuable signing than Trubisky was. I mean, people forget, like, Marcus Mariota for a very long time was doing pretty much the same thing on the Titans that Trubisky was doing on the Bears. And he also brings in that rushing ability. So I do like that move for the Atlanta Falcons. And, losing Matt Ryan, he's probably going to mentor a young quarterback in next year's draft. But yeah, I mean, that pretty much does it for all the quarterback moves. But the next thing we're going to move to is a massive trade, actually, I should say. Debatably, the NFL's best receiver is on the move. The Packers end up trading Davante Adams to the Las Vegas Raiders in a trade which I believe was only a second-round pick or a couple picks in this year's draft. And, this is a move that many thought was going to happen, considering the fact that Aaron Rodgers took up so much of that cap space, but to still see it happen, to still see Davante Adams leave, and I mean, who would have ever pictured a scenario where Aaron Rodgers would be on the Packers the next year and Davante Adams wouldn't? It didn't really seem like it would make that much sense, but here we are. Davante Adams going to that loaded AFC West, and we talked about how possibly the Raiders just by default have the worst quarterback in that division in Derek Carr, although I still really like Derek Carr, but making a big move. I mean, what does this say for the whole AFC West, Davante Adams?
Yet again, in the past week or so of free agency, the AFC West is just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Now you got Davante Adams moving in, who is arguably the best wide receiver in the league currently. He's going to completely change the Raiders' offense. Derek Carr, really, and they're going to reunite, because I believe Davante Adams and Derek Carr played, I don't know if it was college or high school, something like that. But the two of them have chemistry, and I know that the Raiders are definitely very happy to get Davante Adams in there.
Yeah, and I'll just speak really quickly. As you mentioned, the AFC West, I mean, it's been crazy, and we were talking about how Derek Carr is possibly the worst quarterback in that division, and he's a great quarterback. Now he gets an amazing weapon to improve that division even more. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah, so the total package for Davante Adams is only a first and second round pick. I mean, crazy that he was available. I mean, but Davante Adams came out and said he was not going to play on that franchise tag. That's something we actually talked about last week, and sure enough, he got traded because he just wasn't going to play for Green Bay with that big contract. But I think this goes again, it kind of goes to show you, I do think the Packers championship window is closed at this point. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to keep you in contention. It's a very bad division. It's a bad conference in general, but I don't think you're going to be as good as Tampa Bay. I don't think you're going to be able to beat them without Davante Adams. So great move for the Raiders in terms of keeping up there. And I also want to touch upon another move they made, Chandler Jones, getting him over to Las Vegas.
Yeah, Chandler Jones is a really good linebacker who is now going to be paired with Max Williams. Max Crosby. Crosby. I'm thinking of somebody else. But Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. I mean, it's another stud pass rush duo in that division. Chandler Jones is going to, yet again, just going to thrive in that defense. They were needing a linebacker, especially after losing Corey Littleton. But yeah, Chandler Jones.
Yeah, very interesting to see. I mean, many people were waiting. For a long time after that Wilson trade, people were kind of making fun of the Raiders. They weren't making the moves. A lot of people were there in the thought process, but you're right there in that division, truly. I mean, they were a team that made the playoffs last year and actually almost beat the Cincinnati Bengals. People forget about that, but they were driving down the field to tie the game. So, we're looking at maybe possibly the greatest division we've ever seen if it lives up to the hype. I mean, who do we think is going to win this division looking at it now? I mean, who can you even say is going to win?
You can't really even say who's gonna win. The Chargers have maybe the best defense in that division behind the Broncos. I don't know. With the Chargers signing J.C. Jackson and Khalil Mack, that defense is gonna be scary. And when you're gonna be playing against Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson and Derek Carr with Davante Adams for most of your season, I mean, you're gonna need a really good defense.
I mean, the most funny part about this all is, like, we talked about how the NFC is looking much more weak right now. If you put the Las Vegas Raiders in the NFC, they'd be one of the top teams in the NFC, and they might be the worst team in this division. It's just crazy to see. I mean, I don't even know what to really make of it, to be honest with you. I mean, now with the expanded seven playoff team format, you could possibly see all four teams make it. I mean, granted, I do think that One's probably going to miss out because you have to figure you probably with the AFC North now, Cleveland, Baltimore, Cincinnati. But just compared to the NFC, the AFC is so stacked right now, and it got even more stacked by another huge trade: Von Miller to the Buffalo Bills. 6 years, $120 million. Now, I do not like the contract because of the year amount and how much money he's going to get paid. I mean, you're looking at Von Miller probably getting paid into his late 30s, around 37 years old. But he was crucial to that Rams Super Bowl win. I'm not going to discredit that at all. He's still a great player. But, I mean, do you think the Bills are going to regret this later on? I mean, he's going to be paying until he's 38 years old.
We saw on the Rams that Von Miller definitely still has it. Even as he's in his 30s. The 6-year contract with, I mean, he's getting paid something like $20 million a year. That's big expenses. But with somebody like Von Miller, I think you're getting your money's worth. Just adding onto that Buffalo defense.
Yeah, the Buffalo defense is what cost them ultimately losing that Kansas City game. They weren't able to stop Mahomes. They weren't able to get to him, and just the defense fell apart. Von Miller in there, it could be a whole different story. So I do like that move in terms of possibly winning it right now, but you may feel the effects of it later on, which means that if you're the Buffalo Bills, you're in a complete win now. You're trying to go to the Super Bowl this year, the next year, and the following years. But I think now is your time if you're Buffalo, and they acknowledged that, and they ended up making that move. Speaking of making your move when you're in the championship window, the Cincinnati Bengals got another huge addition to their offensive line, La'el Collins. They continue to build it up. I mean, how could they possibly go back to the Super Bowl next year?
I think they probably have the best chance of going back to the Super Bowl next year. The offense is mostly the same, minus C.J. Uzomah, who left, who was a really big threat for them in the red zone. Losing your tight end is a little bit of an issue. You might have to go sign a tight end, but there's plenty of people that you could sign. And now you have that offense with maybe now one of the best offensive lines with Alex Kappa and La'el Collins and just a slur of other offensive linemen. But you could see even in the Super Bowl on that last drive, Joe Burrow had so much pressure on him from Aaron Donald, and the offensive line in the playoffs and especially during the Super Bowl was just like wet cardboard. That was the one type of position that they needed in order to really win the Super Bowl, and now they will.
I mean, yeah. If you're Cincinnati, this is probably as good of a chance as you ever had to win the Super Bowl. I mean, you have Joe Burrow and his rookie contract, which means that you can still really sign anyone, and they acknowledge that. They did what the Indianapolis Colts didn't do 10 years ago. They got the offensive line for their quarterback. We saw what happened with Andrew Luck. They never got the offensive line for him, and it didn't work. They got it too late. He ended up retiring early. So getting this for Joe Burrow is crucial. I do really like Cincinnati next year. It's hard to go back to the Super Bowl, but they're definitely in play. But just in general, it's just such a loaded conference. But going over to the NFC, we're going to talk about the Rams going for yet another wide receiver, getting Allen Robinson. This is going to do a lot. We've seen Robert Woods now go to the Titans, possibly Odell Beckham. I mean, was it worth it getting Allen Robinson to the Rams? What does that do for them?
Yeah, Allen Robinson is a really good wide receiver, and you could obviously see that he was not happy with the Chicago Bears sitting out for his franchise tag. But you're bringing another stud wide receiver into that offense. Just another, I don't know, I would consider it maybe a toy for Matthew Stafford to play with. So that offense is just going to get even crazier than it already is. And that offense was the best offense in the league last year. And now it's getting even better. That team is going to be probably the most scariest team in the NFL.
But as I just mentioned, I mean, Odell Beckham possibly on the market. I mean, a lot of contenders who could possibly want him. He sent kind of a cryptic message about kind of right after the Robinson signing about him feeling slighted or something. So he possibly will be on the move. I mean, what teams could we be looking at to sign Odell? He's going to have that torn ACL, but coming back, I mean, who knows what happens? Where could you see Odell going?
Honestly, I could see Odell going to any team in the league. I mean, any team can always need another wide receiver. Even, I don't know, some team like the Chiefs, maybe? I don't know. I could see him wanting... I mean, he said last year that he wanted to go to a team that was going to win. And the Chiefs, I think, if they got Odell Beckham Jr., I think they do have a shot of winning again.
And, I think Tampa Bay is also in play for sure. But speaking of the Kansas City Chiefs, we got to talk about this. Juju Smith-Schuster going to Kansas City, a move which is definitely going to get memed. But, another receiver in Kansas City. How do you see Juju Smith-Schuster fit in there?
I think Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be pretty good in that offense. I mean, you can throw any wide receiver in that offense with Patrick Mahomes, and Patrick Mahomes is just going to turn them into a really good wide receiver. So,
you need more receiver. You can never have enough receivers, as you said. We saw with the Rams, they constantly were going out getting guys. Back when they got Odell Beckham, they didn't need him. But, Robert Woods tore his ACL right after. So it ended up being a huge pickup for them, and it really led them to get a Super Bowl. So Juju going there, I expect him to have a good season with Mahomes. He was playing with Ben Roethlisberger for the past couple of years, and Ben Roethlisberger, as we know, is not as good as he was before. But before we end this podcast, I actually want to get into a quick story, continuing about the horrible coaching tenure of Urban Meyer. New report actually came out that he was unaware of star players such as Aaron Donald and Deebo Samuel. How bad of a coach could you possibly be?
Possibly one of, if not the worst coaches of all time. Even with that, and that's even adding on to what he did in that organization, completely ruined that team. And the whole allegations of him kicking his kicker. He just seems a bit like a kind of a scummy guy.
Yeah. Awful head coach for sure. But even Jacksonville now, you have Doug Peterson. Although he won a Super Bowl, to his credit, I don't consider Doug Peterson to be the greatest coach ever, or one of the best. But considering the upgrade from Urban Meyer, that's a massive upgrade. And as I was mentioning before the breaking news, they actually got Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram is a guy who obviously very up and down player. I saw for myself for many years. But probably the best weapon that Jacksonville now has, they signed Christian Kirk. Do we see Trevor Lawrence possibly getting better with those guys? Maybe Kirk, Evan Ingram. Can we see it?
Yeah, I can see it. Trevor Lawrence has a lot of potential, and the Jacksonville Jaguars obviously saw that, taking him number 1 overall. Coming out of college, everybody knew that Trevor Lawrence was going to be a really good quarterback, and now you're throwing a lot of weapons behind him. He's going to have some new people to throw to. And I think he can and probably will be really successful.
Another thing I'm going to mention here is that, one huge quarterback which is still not off the market, Jimmy Garoppolo. Where do you think he's going to go? He still hasn't been signed. He's still there right now in San Francisco. What do you think is going to happen there?
Quickly, I just have to talk about my frustrations with I don't understand how people can talk bad about Jimmy Garoppolo, especially for 49er fans. 49ers fans should really just be quiet about Trey Lance is unproven, and Jimmy Garoppolo took your team from going 5-12, something, not even 5-12, 5-11, not a winning record 2 seasons ago, and now he took you to the NFC Championship, and you're complaining about him. Looking at how the 49ers have performed without Jimmy Garoppolo, it's bad. And throwing somebody in there like Trey Lance, who's unproven, is going to worsen your team a lot.
Oh, another thing, I got to ask you, Nick, as a Patriots fan, J.C. Jackson going to the Chargers, how big of a loss do you think that is for the Patriots? How big of a gain is that for the Chargers?
Yeah, well, especially after that and losing Gilmore this season. Our cornerback room is empty. I'm not very happy with that. J.C. Jackson, especially with this bit of a breakout year for him, even though he has been very good in the past. It is very sad to see him go.
And just finally, we're going to end off with Matthew Stafford getting a big contract extension, 4 years, $160 million. Kind of expected, to be honest with you, but any sort of thoughts on that?
Well-deserved. Taking that Rams team to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. Coming from the Lions, I think Matthew Stafford is happy. And I'm sure that the Rams are feeling happy that they took the risk and pretty much traded all of their future away for Matthew Stafford. And Matthew Stafford has strived in an offense, and he's going to be really good.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the NFC right now, like I mentioned, not a great division right now. I mean, really, it's just Tampa Bay and the Rams. I think those are really your two contenders in that whole entire conference, and maybe San Francisco. But yeah, in general, I think that pretty much sums it up for our podcast today. NFL free agency, most of the dominoes have fallen, but there's still some more to fall. We got the draft coming up soon, so still a very exciting time for football. And as always, we're going to be here to keep talking about it. I'm Colin here with Nick and Chris, and we are signing off. Thank you so much for listening.